Hello and welcome to this channel. Today we will be talking about a river creature that lived in the River Conway in North Wales, UK. This creature was called the Afanc. It was described to having the body of a beaver but the head and tail of a crocodile. This creature was known to drown livestock and ruin crops. But if it was angered in any way, it would break banks with its strong tail, causing mass flooding to the villagers living close by. There had been many attempts to kill the monster, but unfortunately his hide was so tough no man-made weapon could pierce it. So with this in mind, the villagers came together and made a plan. If they could capture the Afanc, they could move it to somewhere he couldn't escape from. The villagers came together and made a plan to move the Afanc from the river to a lake called Livelihood, last translated into English as Lake of the Blue Fountain, which was based close to the summit of Mount Snowdon. To move the Afanc, it was decided to contact a man called Hugardan, who had the strongest long-horned oxen in the country. With this plan in action, the villagers gathered as much iron as they could so the blacksmith could make chains to restrain the creature. While the chains were made, some of the villagers would track the Afanc to find where the creature lived on the river. Once found, they named that section in Afanc, in English the Afanc Pool. Not long after the blacksmiths had finished making the strongest chains they had ever made, Hugardan had arrived with the two of his most strongest oxen in his herd. But now they had a problem. How would they be able to get the Afanc onto the bank and capture it? Lucky for them, a brave farmer's daughter that lived along the bank volunteered to be bait to draw the creature out, and so with everything ready they made their way to the pool. Once at the pool, the daughter's father and the other villagers hid in the tall grass as the girl walked to the shore. She took a deep breath and she began to sing a Welsh lullaby. Suddenly the water began to churn and bubble. Then suddenly a huge head of the creature appeared. The sudden sigh of the Afanc frightened the girl, but instead of running away she stood her ground and gazed fearlessly into the Avanc's green and black eyes. She took another deep breath and continued singing her Welsh lullaby. The Afanc slowly began to crawl onto the land towards the girl. But instead of attacking, the creature seemed to enjoy the song. Before long the girl noticed the creature had lowered his head and finally closed his eyes. The lullaby had sent the Afanc to sleep. Seeing this, the girl signaled to her father that it was now or never. The girl kept singing while her father and the other villagers began placing the chains on the creature. As the last chain was put onto the creature, it suddenly woke up. With a massive roar it began to spin, trying to escape its chains and slide back into its pool. Luckily for the villagers, the chain stayed put, and with the extra length, Hugardan managed to hitch it to his oxen before swimming away. Feeling the weight of the chains, both oxen braced themselves and managed to stop the Afanc from escaping, but it would also need the strength of all the men to pull the creature out of the lake and onto the bank. After the creature was subdued on the bank, the Hugardan began marching his oxen and they dragged the Afanc towards its new home. But on the way up Leader Valley the path was so steep one of the oxen was pulling so hard the poor oxen lost his eye. The tears the poor oxen she formed a small lake and is now known as Betws-y-coed, translated meaning pool of the Ose's eye.
Finally, after all the struggle, the oxen managed to reach Livelihood, close to the summit of Snowdon, and quickly the men went to work. They loosened the chains that restrained the Afanc. Once feeling the chains loose, the Afanc stood up, and with an all-might roar he leaped into the deep blue water. Finally the men showed their relief, as the Afanc was now trapped in the lake as the banks were surrounded by sturdy and sharp rock, making escape impossible for the Afanc.
It is said that the creature is still trapped in the lake to this very day. Thank you very much for listening to this legend, and I'm sorry about some of the pronunciation of the local names. If you enjoyed this tale, please like and subscribe. I hope to see you again soon.